My aunt said, "Don't worry, he never comes home early," but that night, he did. And everything I wasn't supposed to feel, I already did. It started with a lie that wasn't meant to be dangerous. My aunt smiled at me from the kitchen doorway and said, "Don't worry, he never comes home early." I don't know why she said it like that. Half teasing, half tired. Maybe she trusted me. Maybe she trusted her. Either way, that night changed everything. I've been staying in my aunt's place for a few weeks, finishing a university project, pretending to be busy. But the truth was simpler. I liked being there. The house was quiet, full of warm lights and faint music that always seemed to come from somewhere unseen. And then there was her, my aunt's friend, Elena. Elena was older, graceful in that way people are when they've stopped trying to impress anyone. She'd come over most evenings after work, sometimes to help my aunt with dinner, sometimes just to sit and talk. I pretend to read or work, but I always listened to her voice, the rhythm of her laugh, the way she paused before saying something honest. Tonight, though, it was just the two of us. My aunt had gone to a late dinner with her colleagues and left Elena to drop off a casserole dish. Only Elena stayed. She was wearing a soft gray sweater and jeans, hair tied loose, eyes tired but kind. She asked if I'd eaten. I said I wasn't hungry. She smiled, a slow, knowing smile. "You always say that," she said, and went to make tea anyway. The air was thick with the smell of chamomile and something floral, maybe her perfume. The silence between us felt new, heavier than usual. "You're quieter tonight," she said. "So are you." Her eyes flicked toward me, a mix of amusement and something else. Maybe that's a good thing. We sat at the dining table, the dim light above us, trembling with every breeze from the open window. She asked about my project, my plans, my sleeplessness. I answered, half aware that I was studying her face more than I was forming sentences. She leaned her chin on her hand. "You look at people the way writers look at endings," she murmured. I froze. "I don't mean that badly," she added quickly, looking down. "It's just intense." Her words hung there, soft, dangerous, true. Somewhere between the third sip of tea and the second minute of silence, the tension stopped feeling like curiosity and started feeling like gravity. She brushed a strand of hair behind her ear, but her fingers trembled slightly. My hand twitched on the table. Wanting to move, not daring to. "Does he really never come home early?" I asked. She looked at me, startled, then laughed, quietly, nervously. "No, not usually." The clock on the wall ticked louder. Outside, rain started to whisper against the window. For a moment, we didn't speak. The space between us felt fragile, like it could shatter or melt, depending on who breathed first. Her gaze dropped to my hand, still resting close to hers. "I should probably," she began, voice barely above a whisper. "Stay," I said. "I don't know why, or maybe I do." She exhaled, eyes closing for a second, as if fighting something invisible. When she opened them again, there was no trace of hesitation, just quiet, aching honesty. "I shouldn't," she said, almost to herself. But she didn't move. Then, suddenly, the sound of keys turning in the lock. The front door creaked open. A man's voice called out, "Elena." Her breath caught. My heart stopped. We looked at each other, caught between what we were and what we almost became. Her lips parted, not to speak, but to feel. And that's when I realized everything that should have stayed unspoken had already been said. The sound of the door still haunted the room long after it closed again. It wasn't him, just the neighbor dropping off a package. But by then, the damage had already been done. Elena sat back down slowly, a quiet laugh escaping her lips, half relief, half disbelief. "I told you," she said softly. "He never comes home early." Her smile faded as quickly as it came, and something unspoken lingered between us. Not quite fear, not quite regret. I remember the first time I saw her, months before that night. My aunt had invited her for dinner, saying, "You'll like her. She reads the kind of books no one else finishes." Elena was different. The way she spoke, the way she listened, she noticed things most people ignored. She'd been through a divorce a few years back, had no kids, and worked at a publishing office downtown. My aunt once said she was finally learning to live again. But there was something about her eyes, a quiet loneliness she tried to hide behind easy laughter. I guess I saw it because I knew that feeling too. I grew up watching people walk out. My parents, my friends, even myself sometimes. So when Elena spoke, it wasn't just her voice that drew me in. It was her stillness, the kind that made you want to stay, even when you shouldn't. Now, sitting across from her, the rain still whispering against the window, that stillness was back. I wanted to ask her 100 things about her marriage, her regrets, her heart, but I didn't. I just watched her trace the rim of her teacup with her finger, lost in thought. Do you ever wish you could start over? I asked quietly. She didn't look up. Every day, she said. Her voice cracked slightly, and I felt it, the kind of honesty that makes silence feel heavier than words. She looked at me then, as if realizing how much she'd said. And you? She asked. You're too young to be carrying that question. I shrugged. Maybe I just learned early that people don't always stay. Something in her expression softened. For the first time, she looked at me not like her friend's nephew, but like someone who understood her loneliness. Lightning flickered faintly outside. She stood to check the window, her sweater slipping slightly off one shoulder. Without thinking, I reached out and fixed it, a simple, wordless gesture. She froze. So did I. Her breath hitched, eyes meeting mine, not in fear, but in recognition, like she saw something she'd been trying not to see. Thank you, she whispered, voice unsteady. I nodded, though I didn't know what I was thanking her for. Maybe for not stepping back. The rain grew louder. She sat again, closer this time. Neither of us spoke. But somewhere in that fragile silence, something shifted. Not loud or sudden, just real. And for the first time, I realized the danger wasn't in being caught. It was in wanting her to stay. The next few days felt like borrowed time. Elena stopped coming by for dinner, and my aunt didn't mention her once, though I caught her glancing at her phone more than usual. I tried to focus on my work, but everything I wrote somehow led back to her. Her voice, her quiet laugh, the way her fingers had brushed mine when I fixed her sweater. That single second replayed in my head like a memory I didn't earn the right to keep. It was 3 nights later when I saw her again. My aunt had gone out, leaving me to lock up. Around 10, a knock came at the door, soft, hesitant. When I opened it, she stood there, hair damp from rain, holding a small folder to her chest. I left some paperwork for your aunt, she said, avoiding my eyes. Her voice sounded rehearsed, fragile. I stepped aside. She's out. You can leave it on the table. She nodded, walked in. The smell of rain followed her. The same sweater, the same perfume, the same silence pressing against the air between us. I didn't mean to interrupt, she said after a long pause. You didn't. She looked at me then, really looked, like she was searching for the distance that used to protect us. But it wasn't there anymore. I shouldn't have stayed that night, she said softly. I know, but I wanted to. Those 4 words undid me. I took a step closer, not enough to touch her, just enough to feel her breathing. Elena, don't, she said, her voice trembling. Please don't make it harder. We stood there, caught in the middle of something that felt like both gravity and guilt. Then footsteps outside. Her eyes widened. He's early. The world tilted. I whispered. My ex-husband, she said quickly. He's been coming around again, trying to fix things. The doorbell rang. Sharp, loud. She froze. I could see panic flicker through her, the kind that comes from being seen when you weren't supposed to be there. Go to the kitchen, she hissed. Please. I hesitated. Elena, now. I slipped around the corner just as she opened the door. From the hallway, I could hear his voice low, familiar, too comfortable. He laughed, said something about the rain, about missing how she made tea. Elena's answers came out small and strained. I couldn't see them, but I could hear the distance she was forcing between them. Then silence. A chair moved. The sound of a hand brushing fabric. I closed my eyes. Something inside me twisted, a raw, selfish ache that had no name. A minute later, the door shut again. His footsteps faded down the porch. When I turned back, she was leaning against the wall, pale, shaking. Her eyes met mine. "He still has a key," she said quietly. I didn't say anything. I just reached out, steadying her hand. She didn't pull away. For a long moment, neither of us breathed. Everything we shouldn't want was suddenly inches away. And still, neither of us moved. Because sometimes, not moving is the only way to stop from falling. The house had gone quiet again, the kind of quiet that hums in your chest. After that night, Elena didn't come by for days. No messages, no excuses, no casserole dishes to drop off. I told myself to let it go, to forget. But forgetting her felt like holding my breath underwater. It only worked until I needed air. So when my aunt mentioned that Elena was hosting a small book club evening, I found myself outside her house before I could think it through. I didn't plan on going in. I just wanted to see her, to convince myself she was fine, that we hadn't imagined what happened. But when I looked through the rain-specked window, I saw him, her ex-husband, sitting beside her, laughing, his hand brushing her shoulder like he still belonged there. Something in me snapped. By the time the guests left, I was still standing across the street. The night air was cold, sharp. I didn't care. When she finally stepped outside to throw the trash, she saw me. Her expression froze, surprise, then something heavier. "You shouldn't be here," she said, walking closer, her voice low but shaking. "I needed to see you." "Why?" The question hit harder than it should have. Maybe because I didn't have a clean answer. "I saw him," I said, "at your place. You let him touch you like—" "Stop," she interrupted, stepping closer. "You don't get to then tell me it means nothing," I said, voice cracking. "Tell me he still does." Her lips parted, but no words came out. Rain started again, thin, cold lines sliding between us. "Elena, you whispered." She shook her head. "You think this is simple? You're a boy trying to rescue someone who stopped believing in rescue a long time ago." "I'm not trying to rescue you." I stepped forward, my heart pounding. "I'm trying to not lose you before I've even had you." Her breath hitched, a sound so small it cut through the storm. "You can't say things like that," she whispered. "Then why are you still here?" Lightning flared across the street, lighting her face, the tears she hadn't let fall, the fear she couldn't hide. "I hate that you make me feel alive," she said suddenly, almost shouting it, her voice breaking. "Do you understand what that means? I built my peace around being numb, and now you're undoing it." I took another step, rain dripping down my hair, my hands trembling. "Then stop me." She looked at me, eyes wide, breath trembling, and didn't move. For one heartbeat, we stood there, inches apart, the storm blurring everything but us. Her hand lifted, slowly, touching the side of my face. "You shouldn't have come," she whispered. I couldn't stay away. The thunder swallowed her next breath. Her fingers curled against my jaw, and in that second, I knew what was about to happen. But before either of us moved closer, a car pulled into the driveway. Headlights flashed across her face. She froze. I stepped back, heart hammering. The door of the car opened. Her voice was a whisper. "You need to go. Now." I didn't. Not right away. Because everything I'd been afraid to say was burning on my tongue. And everything she wasn't ready to feel was written all over her face. I didn't sleep that night. The image of her face, the panic, the guilt, the ache, kept replaying behind my eyes. Every time I closed them, I heard her voice again. "You need to go." I should have listened. But something in her tone felt less like rejection and more like fear. By morning, I convinced myself it wasn't about us, that maybe the man in the car was her ex again, or maybe someone she didn't want to explain. But I couldn't stop wondering what she was hiding. Later that afternoon, my aunt came home early. She looked distracted, her eyes darting to her phone again and again. I asked what was wrong, pretending to sound casual. She hesitated, then sighed. "Elena called me this morning." My chest tightened. "Oh," she said something strange. She asked if you were still staying here. I tried to keep my face neutral. Yeah, why? She sounded upset. Said someone left a note on her doorstep last night. No name, just a message. I felt the air leave my lungs. What kind of message? My aunt looked at me, studying me the way people do when they already know the answer. It said he knows. For a second, I couldn't speak. The words hung in the air like smoke. She thinks it's her ex, my aunt continued. He's been showing up again, uninvited. I told her to change her locks. I nodded numbly, every thought colliding in my head. Her ex. The car. The headlights. He must have seen us. By evening, I couldn't stay still. I walked to her house, again, knowing it was reckless, knowing my aunt would notice. When she opened the door, she didn't look surprised, just exhausted. I knew you'd come, she said quietly. Why didn't you tell me? I asked. What would I have said? She replied, stepping aside. That I let someone half my age ruin the one part of my life that still felt safe? Her voice trembled, but her eyes didn't flinch. I took a breath. He saw us, didn't he? She didn't answer. Her silence said enough. Elena, he came back last night, she said finally. After you left. Said he knew there was someone else. He found her notebook, the one you left here a few weeks ago. My stomach dropped. My writing, all the lines I'd scribbled about her, the way she moved, the way she made quiet feel full. He read it, she said. All of it. For a long moment, I couldn't breathe. What did he do? I managed. He didn't yell, she said softly. He just smiled and said, You always wanted a story worth ruining. Then he left. She looked at me then, and for the first time, there was no distance left to hide behind. This isn't just a mistake anymore, she whispered. It's a secret that's already bleeding. I stepped closer, my voice barely holding. Then maybe we stop pretending it's wrong. Her eyes filled, not with tears, but with something sharper. Don't say that, she said, shaking her head. You don't understand what happens after the story ends. She turned away, but her voice cracked on the last word. And in that breaking, I knew she wasn't scared of him. She was scared of us. The next morning, everything felt heavier. The air, the light, even the sound of rain outside. I hadn't heard from her since the night she told me the truth. No messages, no calls. Just silence. The kind that presses against your chest until you start imagining voices that aren't there. By noon, I couldn't stand it anymore. I grabbed my jacket and walked to her house one last time. Every step felt like trespassing on something sacred or foolish. When she opened the door, she didn't look surprised. She looked tired, like she'd already had the argument we were about to have 100 times in her head. You shouldn't be here, she said softly. I know. Then why are you? Because you won't say what you actually want. She exhaled, leaning against the doorframe. The rain behind me blurred the world into gray. You think this is about want, she said quietly. It's about consequence. Then let it be about both. Her eyes flicked up, sharp and wet. You don't understand what it means to be me. I've lived enough years to know that love doesn't save anyone. It just exposes what you can't keep. Maybe that's the point, I said. Maybe love isn't supposed to be safe. She laughed, broken, beautiful. You talk like someone who's never lost anything. I stepped closer, shaking my head. You're wrong. I've lost plenty, but none of it felt like losing until I met you. Her hand came up instinctively, maybe to push me away, maybe to hold on. I couldn't tell. Our fingers brushed. Electricity, fear, everything at once. Elena, her name felt fragile on my tongue. I can't keep doing this, she whispered. Every time I see you, it feels like choosing a life that doesn't belong to me anymore. Then take it back, I said, voice trembling. Let it belong to you again. To us. For a long moment, the only sound was the rain and our breathing. Two people suspended between wanting and breaking. She looked up at me, eyes glassy, searching for the version of herself she used to trust. I hate how much I believe you, she said finally. I reached for her hand, not to pull, just to hold it still. Then stop pretending it's wrong. She let me, just for a second, just long enough to feel the truth pass between us. Warm, terrifying, real. Then she pulled away, stepping back into the doorway. "I can't promise you anything," she said. "I'm not asking you to." Her eyes softened. "Then what are you asking?" I hesitated, then smiled, small and honest. "For you to stop saying goodbye before you even leave." For a moment, she didn't move. Then, quietly, she reached up, touched my face, and whispered, "You shouldn't make me believe in beginnings." The door closed slowly, not slammed, not final, just closed. But behind it, I could still feel her, like warmth that refused to fade. And maybe that was enough. It's strange how silence can become a language. Weeks passed after that day, and neither of us spoke. Not because we didn't want to, but because we already knew what words would do. Mayan asked once if I'd seen Elena lately. I told her no. She smiled like she didn't believe me but didn't push. Maybe she understood more than she let on. The nights were the hardest. Every time it rained, I found myself listening for a knock, a whisper, a heartbeat that wasn't mine. The house felt emptier now, the air thinner, like she'd taken something with her when she left. But life doesn't stop. It just changes rhythm. One afternoon, I found a small envelope tucked under my aunt's front mat. No name, just my handwriting on it. Inside, a single folded note. "You were right. Love isn't supposed to be safe. It's supposed to wake you up. Don't let what we couldn't have turned into what you stopped believing in." The words were simple, but they hit like memory, quiet and final. For a long time, I just stood there on the porch, the paper trembling slightly in my hand. I wanted to run to her, to say all the things that got lost between fear and timing. But I didn't, because her words, that ache, that unfinished story, felt like exactly how it was meant to. I still think about her sometimes when I walk past the cafe where she used to read, or when I catch the scent of chamomile in the rain. She's there, in flashes, not haunting me, just reminding me what it felt like to be seen. I started writing again. Not stories about her, but stories that sound like the kind she would have loved. Ones where people don't always get what they want, but they still find a reason to stay soft. A few months later, I saw her from a distance, at a bookstore, laughing with someone new. Her hair shorter, her face lighter. She didn't see me. I didn't call out. For the first time, I didn't feel the ache of losing her, only the quiet gratitude of having known her at all. Because maybe that's what real love does. It doesn't always last. It just leaves you different, a little more awake, a little more honest, a little more alive. And on the nights when it rains, I still hear her voice sometimes, soft, teasing, like that very first evening. "Don't worry, he never comes home early," but that night he did. And nothing, not even time, could undo what started after that. If it made you feel something, even for a second, drop a red heart in the comments. Tell me what kind of story you want next. Forbidden slow burn romance, love that arrives too late, a story about second chances. Type your pick below. Your choice might inspire the next story.